Everybody, this is Raleigh with Live Forever Young Radio Live, and I'm here with Bob as usual. It is Thursday. It is time to have fun and talk about health and wellness, and we are glad to be here, Bob. I really wanted to say welcome to everyone here and you. How's your day going?
It's going really well. I'm psyched that we came up with this idea for this ash sale.
Yes, the ash sale.
We're not going to sell ashes.
No.
But we are going to talk to people about ashwagandha.
Ashwagandha, yes. In our daily lives, everybody runs into stress. Everybody has anxiety, especially now with everything that's going on in the country and just in general. I think you have a stat, 95% of the time, people are of the belief that things are not okay.
That's right.
Is that the stat you always?
That's correct.
Yes, and so think about that. 95% of the time that we are awake, there's people out there who think everything's going wrong. And that can cause stress, anxiety, all these different
depression.
Things. Yes, depression. And a couple of the tools that we have that we want to share with you are things that can help with that naturally, because instead of having to deal with, prescriptions and things like that, if there's a way that you can kind of naturally handle it, which there are ways, why not do it, right?
Yeah, we have lots and lots of testimonials, and there's hundreds of research articles about ashwagandha root and how it helps people to stay calm.
Absolutely.
And it's not the only thing that it does, but that's what we get most of our testimonials about.
That's true.
People write in, they say, I can't believe how great this is, started taking it, I'm finally able to relax.
Yep.
And this is what we wanted to tell people about today, what it is, how it works. And then also we're going to talk about the emotional freedom technique, which helps equally well as the ashwagandha.
Yes.
And when you combine the two together, it really pays off for people to have their ashwagandha and to learn to do the emotional freedom technique.
Right. Yeah. These are things you can use every day too. And like I said, like tools in the toolbox to deal with the problem of anxiety and stress. So let's get into it. So, from what I know, let me just give you an overview of what I can remember from ashwagandha. It's actually an ancient herb. Is that correct?
Well, the herb has been around for more than ancient. It's just when it was started to be used was in ancient times.
There you go.
So it's been used in Ayurvedic medicine for thousands of years. And as happens with a lot of ancient herbal interventions, sometimes even cures, the modern science is able to determine what the actual active ingredients are, which receptors they're working on, which genes they're expressing. And it turns out with modern science, they go, what we've known for 5,000 years about ashwagandha, we now know exactly how it works. And so it's evidence that says it's not a placebo. It's not woo-woo herbs from ancient times. It actually does work, and it gives people more incentive to want to try it, to want to use it.
Yeah, in a way, it's kind of like modern technology lets us catch up to what people have been using for thousands of years to help with this type of stuff. It just kind of confirms what people have always thought about it. And when that happens, a lot of people get interested and start perking up and saying, well, whoa, okay, so there's these studies that say it helps with relieving cortisol and adrenal, and it helps with adrenal health. It helps with all these things.
Yeah.
So that's kind of the couple of things we wanted to go over.
And, I'll tell you a little story, Raleigh. I remember taking a course in herbs from a man at Northeastern University who had a PhD in medicinal chemistry. And he was a scientist, had his own lab, and he also loved going out into the woods and meadows and collecting herbs that he knew what they did and how they were good for you. So the first part of the class, he had a blackboard with chalk, the old-fashioned way.
Yeah.
And he was drawing pictures for us, and he goes, now, this ginseng, for example, we now know that the active ingredient has this configuration, and there's a benzene ring over here, and he's drawing it all out. He goes, and we have studies in the lab that show what it does. And then he goes, but even more, the old Indian herb doctor I know confirmed it.
There you go.
And what he meant by that was there's all these years of history of observation.
Mm-hmm.
This person came to the old Indian herb doctor, he gave them this herb, and they got better.
Mm-hmm.
And they have thousands of years of experience.
Mm.
And so when he said the old Indian herb doctor confirmed it, he didn't mean the science. He meant the history
of use,
abundance of history of use.
That's see, sometimes right. What they say is you could have all the knowledge in the world, but it's the experience
right.
that you need.
Yep.
And so in a way, you're just saying, here, look, yeah, of course it does what it has. For 20,000 years, we've been giving it to people to calm down and relax, right. And it's been working.
Right. And then I got to go out into the field with the class to identify the different plants, harvest them, bring them back into the lab. He showed us how to prepare them. Cool. He showed us the cure for poison ivy.
Nice.
He showed us a flower that had the same active ingredient as Librium, things like that.
So
we collected.
True plant chemistry, if you will.
Plant chemistry, and we now have plant chemistry in regard to ashwagandha that
Absolutely.
Shows definitively it will help with your adrenal health. It'll help with your cortisol levels, your immune system. It's anti-inflammatory, and we now have proof of that. And so what did we decide to do today, Raleigh, for people?
So for anyone who gets to watch this replay or who's watching it live, we actually decided to do 50% off our ashwagandha. I'll put the code up right now on the screen. It's ASH, ASH, 50.
Yeah.
And you just use that at checkout. So if you go and you go to, it's on, I believe, individual products. So if you go to boomerboost.com, click on all products and then individual products, and you'll find ashwagandha
it's like
root.
The third row down, you'll be able to find it.
Yeah, and it looks just like this, right? And so go online and find that, and then at checkout, just put in ASH50, and it'll drop the price 50%. So that's anytime you guys go on and do that. I don't have an expiration date on it, so I don't know how long the replay will be going out for.
Right.
But it'll last for at least a week or two.
Now, isn't it true, Raleigh, that if someone is a first-time customer,
yes,
they also get a copy of our book?
Yes, that is correct.
Vibrant Living?
Absolutely. We actually, it's see, Bob's being modest here. He said our book, but it's a book that Bob actually helped write mostly, and I just did the graphics, and Stephanie helped with the pictures and the combining into the actual book. But Bob was the brainchild here, and it gives you a lot of really good tips for healthy eating, weight management, do's and don'ts of exercise. It also has a whole bunch of recipes, and in the back is actually some information about our products. I think
there's a section on sleep.
Yes, there's a section on sleep because that's extremely important, especially for stress and anxiety. If you're not sleeping well, you will definitely have stress in your life.
There's a section about good fats versus bad fats.
Yes, that's very important because all you hear is stay away from fats.
Yeah. So it's called Vibrant Living: Keys to a Healthy Lifestyle.
Absolutely, and that comes free with anybody who's brand new who purchases will get that book. We just decided we were going to share the information.
Yep. Anyone who's not a new customer that would get triggered to get that book, if you want it digitally,
yes,
let us know.
We can send it out to you. Also, if you go to our Facebook page, there will be a post up there where you can actually sign up, or if you put your information in there, we can send you, and we'll put the link on our Facebook page to the digital book as well. So you guys can take a look at it digitally if you don't want the hard copy.
So, Raleigh, we have another thing about stress management that kind of has a similar story to ashwagandha.
Yes.
It's not ancient, but for many years, there was a technique of therapy that helped with stress and many other things that was kind of kept to himself, this man named Roger Callahan.
Mm-hmm.
He's a genius type of therapist, similar to Sigmund Freud and Alexander Lowen and Milton Erickson. And he created a technique, the emotional freedom technique, which was a big breakthrough because up until that time, people had to go to a therapist continuously if they wanted to continue using the therapeutic techniques.
Mm-hmm.
You couldn't go and lie on the couch with Sigmund Freud for 2 hours and then be your own therapist afterwards.
Right.
But with Roger Callahan, his technique, which is also called tapping, you could go and learn to do it from Roger and then do it for yourself after the first time you were there.
Absolutely.
And this made a big difference because for people that maybe couldn't afford a $200 clinic visit, once a week or once a month, they now had a technique they could use on their own. So it was about maybe 25 years ago that technique was revealed to a man named Gary Craig. And Gary Craig's task was to reveal it to the world. So he began teaching classes on this technique and made videos about it right at the dawn of when computers were first becoming, having information available on the World Wide Web.
Right. Okay.
So I got to study that technique. I immediately thought to myself, this technique could be made even better if we were to incorporate some neuro-linguistic programming, some bioenergetic therapy, and in some advanced phases, some of the work of Byron Katie. We won't talk about that today. Some other day we could do a whole show on the work of Byron Katie.
Yeah, we would be there.
But
be here for a while.
For today, it's we'll just talk about this tapping technique because you can learn to do this in 5 or 10 minutes, and you can begin using it for yourself right away, and you can teach it, and you can come back to a video like this and review it anytime if you're not sure you've forgotten.
Yeah, that's
to do.
That's the beauty of having the replays. You can always, and we also have a bunch of other podcasts as well at boomerboost.com. If you guys want to go check out some of the stuff that we have there, I'll put it up on the screen, boomerboost.com. You can find a whole bunch of stuff that goes in depth on some of these things. But what we wanted to do is kind of bring it up and explain how you can use it in coordination with something like ashwagandha. And so, tapping, it taps into your acupuncture meridians, correct?
Yes.
Right.
Yeah. So you're tapping on the end points of your meridians. So in the world of acupuncture, which people know about from, needles being placed in certain parts of your body,
right,
that's acupuncture. But this is an acupressure technique where you're not using needles, but we know that the meridians, which are these lines of life force energy running through your body, they can actually measure them now. We know that if you tap on the ends of those meridians, which are in your fingertips and also at spots on your face, but we won't go into the face part today. It's much easier just to tap on your fingertips. And the way you tap is on the side of your nail. So if you hold out one hand and look at the side of your thumbnail, for example, and you tap on it about 5 times, then turn your hand and tap on the side of your index finger, then your middle finger, and keep going, tap on each finger about 5 times, and then tap on what they call your karate chop point, this fleshy part on here. Put your hands crosswise and chop on it. Yeah. And then this is the tapping technique, and then you do it in conjunction with words and phrases that are put together in a specific way to help reframe something.
Right.
So what you're doing is you're reframing your thoughts, your beliefs, your filters, and you're doing it for therapeutic purposes. So if somebody has a phobia, for example,
right,
they're afraid of spiders, which I've had to do this with a person where I had to actually go to their house because they were so afraid of spiders. And in Florida, you see spiders around the house.
Oh, yeah.
She was so afraid she would become hysterical. And she would jump up on the couch or the table and scream hysterically for her husband to come and get rid of the spider before he killed her.
That's not funny, it's not funny. But if you videotape that, you might have some America's Funniest Home Videos.
You might. She had a small child who was extremely upset about these incidents, and he himself was becoming petrified of spiders and didn't want to leave the house.
Yeah, no,
because there were spiders in the lanai. Okay, so What I
Sorry.
did was I went
Crazy.
to her house and I helped her with it. And I asked her, the first question is, on a scale of 1 to 10, how much is this bothering you? How afraid of spiders are you? She goes, if 10's the highest, I'm a 100. She's like, it's out of control. So I said, okay, so what we'll do is we'll go ahead and do this technique, and then we'll see what the number comes down to.
Mm-hmm.
And so we did the technique, which I'll walk you through exactly how we did it. And I checked in with her afterwards, and she's going, She goes, I think it's like around a 2. This is like a miracle. I said, well, 2's not perfect, so let's do this one more time. And we used a little trick for the second time.
Mm-hmm.
And she relaxed, and she goes, I can't even remember having ever been afraid of spiders. I said, okay. I said, would you be okay with going out into this area of your house that's covered by a screen where we know there's always going to be a spider or two somewhere out there, and lying down on one of your lounge chairs out there, and we'll put it right underneath the spider, and you're going to lie down and stare right up at that spider, even though it might fall down on your face. She goes, yeah, no problem. And we did that. We went out. She sat there, looked up at the spider, had no reaction at all.
Thank God there was a spider available.
Yeah. We could have gotten a photograph of a spider. It would have worked just as well.
There you go.
But
one of those little plastic Halloween rings.
See, they lived in a part of Clearwater where they had their house was integrated with the outdoors, right?
Wooded areas,
a screened-in porch, and there's stuff all around.
Sure.
There's always
something.
There's always mosquitoes, spiders, and it's always summertime in Florida.
Well, they never die here. It's so warm. Like it's not like up north where the cold hits and the insects die. It's like, hey, winter hits and they're just like, they put on a little scarf and they make it through.
So, but let's not kid ourselves, because being afraid of spiders is actually
it's a real phobia.
Bad thing, right?
Because and it's a real phobia.
It's a real phobia, but you also don't want to become so unafraid that, because this is what happened to her later. She there was a spider in her laundry room, and she called me to tell me this, and she said, this technique works a little too well. There was a spider in the laundry room, and I went to grab it with my bare hand to put it out of the house. And my husband was there, and he goes, no, don't do that. Get a paper towel if you want to try to save it, or we'll put it in a cup.
Right.
And so she didn't want to kill the spider. She just wanted to grab it and move it outside. But as we know from one of the people that works for us, who recently got bit by a spider here in Florida by a brown recluse spider, and it caused a necrotic lesion. Right?
Yeah.
And people can die from bites from a brown recluse, or a black widow, or other types of spiders. So you want to. This technique works so well that you have to concentrate to use your common sense
and use your better judgment.
Use your better judgment, even though you're no longer afraid.
Right.
You could tap it that you're not afraid of cars, and you might get hit by a car.
Yeah, let's not do that.
You have to be careful with it. They say it works very well, but only always.
There you go.
So be cautious. But here's how we did it. Here's what the phrasing was.
Okay.
And this is how and why it worked. So while tapping on her fingertips, she repeated this phrase that went something like this. Even though up until now, I thought I had to continue to be afraid of spiders, I completely love and accept myself anyway. And I'm so grateful now that I realize this fear, this phobia was way exaggerated. And now I can put it all into perspective and feel at complete peace. And when she was done saying this, I had her cross her hands like this over her heart, push in, take in a deep breath, and then drop her hands down to her knees with her chin down against her chest and breathe out and sit quietly like that for 4 or 5 seconds. Okay. It's extremely relaxing to do that. And what you've done is you've created a very peaceful feeling, which will always happen when you push on your heart and drop your head down. this is where your heart meets your head in this milieu of oxytocin. So oxytocin is this beautiful neurochemical of love and compassion and peacefulness. And you are creating a production of oxytocin in your heart muscle that travels into your brain when you do that exercise. So now you have this paired association between a peaceful feeling and the words that you said in that affirmation that is reframing your belief about spiders.
Gotcha.
Right? Now you can do this technique that one time, and like I said, it came down to a 2 on a scale of 1 to 10. And the follow-up was simply tapping again and saying, even though I thought it was still a 2, I completely love and accept myself. And I'm so grateful it's gone down again. And in fact, I think it's down to a 0. Cross your hands over your heart and breathe in and out. And just like that, I went to a 0 for her, and she was able to do what I described earlier.
That's awesome.
Okay.
Yeah, so it's it's funny you think about it and you listen and you're like, man, it sounds kind of like I don't know if that would really work. But then if you actually really try it with conviction, it's actually doing this with conviction that makes a difference, right? Like you could do this and not really be convinced of what your belief should become, right? Your new belief, you may not be convinced that. So when you do it with conviction and with truth to yourself is when it tends to take on the best reaction, I guess you could say.
So one of the techniques you can use for that, because some people go, I'm not going to do that. That's a hokey tapping thing. It just sounds ridiculous. And, Bob's full of it. Right? Well, that's okay, because if you want to get better and you'd like to get past that belief, you know what you can do?
You can tap it.
Tapping. Even though up until now I thought this tapping thing was a hokey pile of doo-doo, I completely love and accept myself, and I'm so grateful now that I'm open to it.
There you go.
Okay? So don't hold yourself back because of premature cognitive commitments.
No.
Tap those away so that your mind is open, because this just could be exactly what you need. Won't it?
I like it.
Right.
It will.
So this technique not only works for something like phobias, it works for the most severe types of issues that can happen to people. So there's a 6-hour movie about a group of veterans with severe PTSD that went through a whole weekend course in tapping with people supervising them and helping them. And it was miraculous. And you look at the testimonials at the end from these people that had been in war and had experienced horrific things. Some of them were missing limbs and eyes. And they learned to do this tapping technique, and it made a complete and significant difference in their life. Okay? Now, with severe issues like that, you're going to want a coach to help you through it. Okay?
Definitely.
And that's fine. You can find tapping coaches everywhere. There's over 10,000 people that have been through Gary Craig's classes to learn to do tapping. And there's books on it, and there's summits on it. The last tapping summit that they held online, 500,000 people paid to tune into that summit.
Yeah, so it's a real thing. And, when we talk about tapping and we talk about being able to use, again, this tool, right, and combining it with something like ashwagandha, right, you're able to, like you said, the precognitive commitments that you had, it's not just with anxiety and stress. There's tapping for weight loss. There's tapping for, like you said, phobias. There's tapping for almost anything that you could reprogram your belief on.
Yep, tapping for your immune system.
That's another good one.
So your immune system is highly affected by your emotional states. Your thymus, which is encoding your immune cells to help it identify what's friendly and what's not, is very susceptible to emotional upset.
It is.
And we actually experienced a gentleman who had experienced such severe emotional trauma. I won't even go into what happened. It's beyond horrific what happened to this man and his children. And his immune system became so deranged as a result of these emotional traumas that it literally created multiple autoimmune diseases that were killing him. He had got severe arthritis and he was crippled. His immune system had attacked the beta cells in his pancreas and he had diabetes. And when they brought him to see us, it was attacking his brain.
Mm-hmm.
Yet, even with that, the tapping system was able to put a halt to that. It was his thymus is like a mini brain, and the trauma that you experience through your senses has an effect on that mini brain in the middle of your chest. And if you don't have a technique like tapping or havening or some other advanced technique like this, you're going to die from an autoimmune disease.
Absolutely.
And so, yeah, it's nice to get over a phobia of spiders, but there are therapists available that have the experience to be able to take somebody like that gentleman that I was able to help. There's many therapists that can help with severe situations like that. So if anybody is watching and you know someone that's experienced extreme trauma and they don't know about tapping and they don't know about havening, for example, another technique that we teach, then have them get in touch with us and we will show them how to find their own havening or tapping therapist. We know a woman who we interviewed who's a havening expert, who's willing to talk to people for free for a 15-minute session / consult. And we can also find people that specialize in tapping in your area of the country or in Canada, wherever you are, where you might be listening.
Yeah, absolutely. And, talking about things like the different podcasts that you can use, there's also other resources out there. And one of the things, that I've actually experienced with people that have had severe trauma is a lot of the times they don't realize that the trauma is kind of what was the spark for this, if it's an autoimmune disease, or the inability to sleep. And so sometimes it's like a process of rediscovering what happened to you and then dealing with it. Because again, like I've talked to people that'll be like, oh, I feel horrible. No matter what I take, I don't feel good. I'm so stressed out. And, a lot of people don't ask them, well, what happened to make you this stressed out? Or was there a certain event that this started becoming more? And they'll be like, well, yeah, like 4 years ago, my husband died in a car accident and, I barely made it out alive, but, I survived and I'm good.
Right. And but now they have arthritis.
Right. But
it came on.
Right. And
6 months after the accident.
Right. Now they have this autoimmune disorder that's attacking their joints, or they have some other weird issue with their thyroid or something that never was a problem before. Well, these traumas, it could be a death, it could be a car accident, it could be, anything that basically shocks your thymus.
A lot of times, really, we see people end up being hospitalized for some acute emergency. They get a respiratory infection, a severe intestinal infection that almost takes their life. They have to be put on a respirator, and they're in the hospital 2 or 3 weeks. They lose a lot of muscle weight, and the next thing you know, when they come out of the hospital, they're a shell of themselves and they're traumatized. So they then begin to start feeling, pain in their knees, their hands, and they're in need of helping of somebody to help them to mitigate the trauma of that type of a situation so it doesn't affect them going forward.
Right.
It happened. You're not denying that it happened. You're just making sure that, as Dr. Rudin says, you don't want the past to always be present.
Correct.
You want the past to be the past, and you want your present moment to be anew with no negative effect from the past.
A joyful anticipation of the future.
And there you go. There you go. That too. In the present, we're joyfully anticipating the future.
There you go.
So that's really what the situation is. Also on our website, if people go to the section called podcasts and blogs, there's a drop down under there that says emotional freedom technique.
You got it. You read my mind. I
believe there are 5 videos there. So the videos are, the history of the emotional freedom technique. And then there's one that's how to do it. That's the general overview. And then there's one for stress, one for the immune system, and one for weight loss.
Right. Now, if you are thinking, well, the phrasing is great, but I'm not sure how to form my own phrasing, you can write us an email at boomerboost.com. Give us a call, also 1-800-861-4609. And we've got Gene and Lucy and Steph and Jim who can help you out. And if they can't help you create a phrase to insert into your tapping, we can always write an email to Bob or I, and we can help come up with something. But
that happens a lot, Raleigh. Ann Harrison in particular has been very helpful with people. She will she'll get a hold of me and say, hey, Bob, this is what's going on with one of our customers, and they have this issue. And we'll immediately think about, is this an issue where they need a professional therapist, to a referral for this? Or is it something that we could give them a phrase and there's no danger in it and they can get better right away?
Yeah, because you got to be careful. Like we said, this is emotional stuff. It can trigger things. So specifically for people with real deep trauma, you're going to want a coach. You're going to want someone to help you go through that.
Someone has to be there that knows how to create closure after the session is over. Oftentimes, Raleigh, people get autoimmune diseases because they've been to do something like some type of therapy that involves hands-on therapy. If you're a person who's had severe emotional trauma, you want to make sure that the person you're going to see is trained in what's called SER, somato emotional release.
Right.
So you can go to a massage therapist, or you can go to a massage therapist that's trained in SER, so that if the person has been traumatized and they start to have a reaction from the massage, the therapist has had the training on how to deal with it.
There you go. Good. SER, somato emotional release trained massage therapist. We actually have a podcast called Beyond Massage Therapy at boomerboost.com. So if you go podcasts and blogs, go to the podcast section. It's called Beyond Massage Therapy. It talks a lot about that. So check that out. Also, too, before we get going, just wanted to remind everybody, if you wanted to give our ashwagandha a try, 50% off code is ASH, ASH50. So put that in at checkout and you'll get 50% off ashwagandha, and any new customers that we identify that come through, we're going to send you a free book, Vibrant Living, The Keys to a Healthy Lifestyle. So check it out.
Thanks, Raleigh.
Absolutely, Bob. You guys have a great time. Be safe and have a good night.
We'll see you on the next episode of Live Forever Young Radio Live.